This Roman emperor set up attacks for peeing. And this guy? Well, he had a thing for killing his own people. Yeah, Rome wasn't exactly known for its democratic political system. Wait, how did the empire thrive despite some seriously bizarre emperors calling the shots? That's because a handful of advisors were doing the heavy lifting. These are some bizarre facts about Roman emperors that you had no idea about. First up, we've got Nero, the last emperor who ruled the Roman Empire with music. Nero was one of the craziest Roman emperors ever. His idea of entertainment? He'd strut into an arena wearing an animal skin and go on a rampage. But wait, there's more. He'd also put on a mask and belt out tragic songs, with the faces on those masks sometimes looking like his own or his latest crush. At first, Nero's reign wasn't all bad. He had some smart advisors to keep him in check. But when he took full control, things went off the rails. Instead of being a leader, he was more interested in being an artist. Not exactly what you'd want from a ruler, right? So Nero didn't actually play the fiddle when Rome went up in flames during the Great Fire. He actually tried to stop it, tearing down buildings and tightening building codes afterward. So why does everyone think he did? Well, blame it on his fancy palace plans right after the fire. It just made him look even more out of touch. And that reputation stuck, even though the truth got buried over time. Nero might have been remembered for being a musician at the wrong time. But this next guy's recalled for something far more embarrassing. Emperor Vespasian shares his namesake with the slang for toilet. If you were the ruler of the world's ancient superpower, what would you want to be remembered for? Would you want folks to talk about how you brought in a crazy long era of peace, like Augustus did with Pax Romana? Or maybe you'd want them to gush over some awesome buildings you commissioned, like the mind-blowing Pantheon from Hadrian's time. Heck, you might even prefer the notoriety of being a wild and crazy leader like Caligula or Nero. But all those options might sound better than what Emperor Vespasian ended up with. See, despite his military victories and kicking off the construction of the Colosseum in Italy, Vespasian's name is forever linked with, drumroll please, public toilets. Yep, you heard that right. During his rule, Vespasian slapped a tax on gathering and selling pee. Why, you ask? Well, because it was super useful in industries like dyeing and tanning, thanks to its high ammonia content. And when his son Titus got all riled up about it, Vespasian just brushed it off with a classic line, "Money doesn't stink." Sure, money might not have a bad smell, but the connection between Vespasian and pee, well, that stuck. Centuries later, when public urinals started popping up, people started calling them Vespasiani in Italian and Vespasien in French, all thanks to good old Vespasian and his pee-taxing ways. You know how they make those statues of emperors larger than life? Well, in the case of this next guy, it was pretty accurate. Maximus Thrax was a total beast. Herodian paints him as this terrifyingly huge dude, saying that he was so massive that even the best Greek athletes or barbarian warriors couldn't match him. The Historia Augusta takes it a step further, claiming Maximus was basically a giant among men. They say he was over 8 feet tall, with a thumb so big he used his wife's bracelet as a ring. And get this, rumor had it that he could move carts by himself, punch a horse so hard it lost teeth, and drink a whole barrel of wine in one go. Sounds crazy, right? Now, modern scholars think maybe Maximus had a condition called acromegaly, which makes people grow really big due to a hormone problem. But whether he was a real-life giant or not, one thing's for sure. Maximus Thrax left behind some pretty wild stories. Maximus' only flaw was probably that he was huge. But this next emperor takes the cake when it comes to being outlandish. Elagabalus, who ruled from 203 to 222 AD. Elagabalus was into some seriously bizarre stuff. We're talking secret sacrifices, chanting barbaric chants, and even locking up animals with human body parts in his temple. And get this, he wanted everyone to think he was a total player. He intentionally got caught cheating on his husband just to stir up drama. But how did he even get to be emperor in the first place? Well, he was just 14 when he took the throne, and boy was he one of a kind. Rumor has it he tried to shake up Rome's religion and even dressed up to sell himself. Now, here's the thing. Elagabalus wasn't even directly related to the previous emperor, Caracalla, but his aunt pushed for him to take the reins, and with Rome's tradition of keeping it all in the family, he ended up on top. It's like they were stuck in this cycle of passing power down the family tree, even if it meant getting someone totally unfit for the job. Yeah, so bloodlines mattered more than competence. And speaking of having no competence, you wouldn't want to be alive for this next emperor's reign. Let's dive into the wild world of Caligula, the Roman emperor who reigned from 12 to 41 AD. So first things first, Caligula wasn't so different from the Lannisters. He had a thing for his sisters. Yeah, it's pretty scandalous. He'd even have them sit below him at fancy dinners while his wife got the best seat. But wait, it gets even crazier. Caligula thought he was so important that he made himself a god and even made his horse a priest. He'd sacrifice birds to his horse every single day. Now you might be wondering how this guy even became an emperor. Well, despite his scandalous behavior, Caligula had the Senate and the military on his side. Plus, he came from a famous family. But in reality, he seemed more clueless than anything else. He was just a young guy who got way over his head. And about the whole horse senator thing? Yeah, it's just a myth. Caligula never actually made his horse a senator or consul. He just joked about it to show he didn't think much of the Senate. Finally, we've got the craziest emperor of all time. The tumultuous reign of Caracalla, who ruled from 188 to 217 AD. Caracalla wasn't actually known for being a people pleaser. In fact, he was notorious for massacring his own people. Yeah, you heard that right. He didn't hesitate to off anyone who crossed him, including former friends. He was absolutely ruthless. But that's not all. According to Cassius Dio, Caracalla had a penchant for bloodshed. He'd go out and slaughter 100 boars with his bare hands like it was no big deal. And while he claimed to be pious, he had no qualms about shedding innocent blood. He even had 4 Vestal virgins executed, one of whom he'd assaulted himself. Now, you might be wondering how this guy ever got into power in the first place. Well, Caracalla was a military man through and through. He knew how to keep his soldiers happy by boosting their pay. And when it came to holding on to power, he didn't shy away from using brutality. But here's the twist. Despite his savage reputation, Caracalla wasn't completely off his rocker. He might have had a hot temper and a taste for violence, but he wasn't necessarily insane. In fact, he had some moments of clear-headedness, as seen in his judicial proceedings. So yeah, he may have been ruthless, but he wasn't lacking in ability. So there you have it, the turbulent tale of Caracalla, where power and brutality collide in a whirlwind of chaos. Thanks for tuning in, and if you want to catch more awesome content like this, make sure to click on the next video.